If you're gearing up for the NPPE, you know there's a ton to cover. But today, we're going to unpack the absolute bedrock of it all, the essential framework that governs engineers and geoscientists right here in Canada. It's a system built on trust, responsibility, and, most importantly, keeping the public safe. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first. Before we even talk about laws or associations or anything like that, we have to get our heads around one single, fundamental idea that underpins everything else, and that is the duty to protect.
So, let's start with a really basic question. Why? Why do we have all these rules in the first place? You know, the exams, the associations, these protected titles. Why can't someone who's brilliant at the technical stuff just, hang out a shingle and get to work?
Well, the answer is pretty blunt, and it's incredibly serious. It's because the stakes are just way, way too high. I mean, think about it. Catastrophic bridge collapses, dam failures, mining disasters. The work that engineers and geoscientists do is the backbone of our entire society. And when something goes wrong, the consequences aren't just about money, they're measured in human lives.
You see, this whole system, it's really built on a foundation of public trust. It exists for one reason, to protect these critical things. We're talking about public health and safety, the environment we all share and rely on, and of course the welfare and property of every single citizen. This isn't just a job, it's a social contract.
So, how does this massive system of protection actually work? How does it all hold together? Well, it all comes down to two inseparable ideas, two core pillars that hold the entire structure up. And here they are, licensing and self-regulation. Honestly, the best way to think about them is like two sides of the very same coin. On one side, you've got licensing. That's the right to practice, the legal green light to actually do the work. And on the other side, you have self-regulation, which is the responsibility to govern, the massive duty the profession takes on to police itself and make sure everyone is upholding that public trust.
Let's zoom in on licensing for a second. The key word here is formal. This isn't just some handshake agreement. No, this is your official, legal, government-stamped permission slip to work as a professional, to use a protected title like P.eng or P.geo, and to use all the privileges that the law gives you.
And then there's self-regulation. Now, the most important word to focus on here is delegation. This is so important to get. This power is a privilege. It's delegated to the profession by our governments. It is not an automatic right. The profession is trusted to set its own standards, but, and this is a big but, only within a super strict framework of public accountability.
Okay, so we get the what and the why. But who's actually in charge here? Who writes the playbook? Where does all this authority actually come from? And how is it organized across Canada?
This lays out the chain of command perfectly. It all starts at the top, with the Canadian Constitution, which gives the provinces and territories power over professions. From there, each province passes its own law, which we call the Act. That Act then creates and gives power to a regulatory body. And it's that body's job to do the day-to-day work of regulating the profession, to protect you and me.
And here are some of those key players in action. So you can see APGA in Alberta operates under its own act. Same with APGS in Saskatchewan. Over in BC, you've got EGBC under the Professional Governance Act. So yeah, the names of the acts and the bodies, they might change depending on where you are, but that core mission we've been talking about, it stays exactly the same.
So how do these organizations actually do their job? Well, they've got a pretty powerful toolkit. They control who gets to use protected titles like P.eng and P.geo. They define exactly what it means to practice the profession. They create and enforce really strict codes of ethics. They have the power to discipline members who mess up. And they make sure everyone keeps learning through professional development. These are the real levers of self-regulation.
All right, so we've looked under the hood at the machinery of the system. Now let's bring this all back home. Why does any of this matter to you right now as you're studying for the NPPE and getting ready to join the profession?
Here's the bottom line. You are not just stepping into a technical field. You're joining a regulated profession with some pretty profound public duties. This means you have to accept the personal responsibility of self-regulation. You have to recognize that your ultimate #1 duty is always to the public. And you have to understand that your entire practice will be governed by a whole set of laws, rules, and ethical codes.
And man, this quote from Geoscientists Canada, it just says it all, doesn't it? It's about being individually accountable. The license, the ethics, the responsibility, it all comes down to you. It rests on your shoulders as a professional. There's just no passing the buck.
Look, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this right here.
From the Constitution all the way down to the tiniest bylaw, every single piece of this system is designed to serve one single overriding purpose: protecting the public. That is the true north of these professions, period.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. Earning the title of professional engineer or professional geoscientist is a massive privilege, something that takes years of hard work. But with that privilege comes an even greater responsibility. So, the real question is, are you ready for it?